really don't like typing, lmp.tv. We have none other than my good friend Danny Thompson in the queue tonight. He's in the studio. Danny, how you doing?
Ted, it's that time of year. It's Christmas. It's the start of basketball season, and I'm on LMP, so I got the trifecta of life right now.
Hey, we want to let you know this show is brought to you by our good friends at HAPS. HAPS offers free world-class broadcasting tools, a community eager to collaborate, and a simple way for viewers to support creators financially. Big shout out to Mark Goldman. Hello from Los Angeles. Danny, a lot of things going on with NBA. It's good to talk with you. I've been chasing you down for like the last week and a half to give me 20 minutes of your time to talk a little NBA. I'm kind of biased because, full disclaimer, I am a Nets fan, but Nets proper from New Jersey. Not one of these, Johnny-come-lately fans that just because Kevin Durant is here, all of a sudden everyone's wearing, Brooklyn Nets jersey in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going on with you? How's basketball life? How is your life? Before we even get into hoops, how are you dealing with COVID? How are you dealing with how's your family dealing with COVID? Is everyone healthy?
At this point, everybody's healthy. Lately it's been weird, Ted, with NBA season starting literally in the middle of December. I was one of the few people in the world that said that I didn't want this thing to start till January. That way I can enjoy the holidays with my daughter who's here from Florida. So that's why, I've been wanting to do your show, but you're a dad just like I am. The time you get with your little ones is the most important time. And so I haven't seen my daughter since the end of June. So these first couple days with her, I kind of went off the grid, but I got to get back started because Tuesday is opening night. So, we're getting ready. And then covering the Charlotte Hornets with LaMelo Ball has been a very, very fun endeavor in the last month and a half or so.
Has there been a LeVar Ball sighting with you?
No, not yet. We haven't been inside the arena yet. I have not heard of LeVar being here yet. Not sure when it's going to happen. But it's a different vibe here in Charlotte. It's extremely exciting up here. You can go back to Saturday's first game, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. A couple of those assists were Sports Center worthy. And then last night, he finally got his first couple baskets. He had 12 last night. 2 of his assists last night were beautiful alley-oops, one off the backboard to Jalen McDaniels, and then he threw one to Miles Bridges where he caught Miles on his opposite hand for an alley-oop. So it's exciting, and I cannot wait to be in the building. I can't wait for the fans to be in the building because it's an electrifying moment up here now.
I can only imagine, and this is not a knock or a slight, but small market team like Charlotte doing really big things this off season. It's I don't know if it's from the profit sharing or but it seems like the great one, Michael Jordan, got off the schneid and signed a few players.
He went out and got Gordon Hayward in the sign and trade that allowed Boston to get arguably the, as we call it, Ted, the Thanos, but the potential Thanos part of the what do you call it on the wrist? I just lost
the gauntlet.
He got the final gauntlet piece potentially. So, Jordan went out and got Hayward. To some people, is an overpayment. A lot of people don't like the salary, but sometimes you guys spend money. Like you said, small market teams don't go out and get major free agents. As we learned today, a lot of the biggest fish in next summer's free agency pool aren't there anymore. Giannis signed the extension. Bam signed his extension. Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Paul George. A lot of the guys that would have been free agents in August or July, whenever the season ends, or will not be on the table. So Charlotte spent the money, and hey, you know what? Gordon Hayward looks really, really spry. He looks like he's back into Utah Gordon Hayward mode, not Boston. He looks like the Utah Gordon Hayward that we saw that was an all-star, not short time ago. So it's exciting. It's just really, can this team put it all together? They're not going to win a championship. I don't think so. But if they make the play-in game and potentially make the playoffs and make some noise, they still have just about a little bit under $25 million next summer. Who knows? It could be that final piece you need.
I think I said to you last night via text message, I said, as long as they're competitive, I think the fan base is going to really, really, surround them and support them.
The fan bases just want somebody that people will respect. And there's nothing against Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker got more respect when he was in Boston than he does in Charlotte. And all the years he put into Charlotte. Ted, I don't think Charlotte's had a player of this magnitude, and I'm talking about LaMelo Ball, with a media presence, Ted, or people's attention. We're going back to Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson. Nothing against Baron Davis. Nothing against Emeka Okafor or Gerald Wallace. Any of those guys between the LJ, Zoe, and Muggsy era till now. Charlotte hasn't had that guy. And LaMelo Ball steps on the court with 6 million followers on Instagram and 3 million followers on Twitter. And, every time LaMelo says something, it's like, even though he's a man of very short words, and I've learned this from the very beginning, he's a man of short words, he has a presence around him. And the more he's smiling, the more he looks good on the court, it's only going to be good things in Charlotte. And so I think this franchise deserves to have something. Would
you approve of the job Mitch Kupchak is doing with the Hornets?
I mean, he came into a situation where it was a bad cap situation. The only thing that people will be upset about is how they handled Nicholas Batum's contract. They stretched it, so it's $9 million over the next couple of seasons. So it's gonna be 3 years. They're still paying $9 million in dead cap space. But so far, Mitch hasn't done too much. He was really trying to untangle what went on with Rich Cho. James Borrego was his first hiring, and he's been solid. I mean, when you say, a guy had 23 wins is solid, remember, this was a rebuilding job, and this was a job for youth and development. And if you really want to look at the success of the Hornets, look what they've done in the second round. They got Devontae Graham in the second round, who was, should have been the most improved player in the league or should have got way more votes than Luka Doncic, by the way. They've done well with guys like Cody Martin and Caleb Martin, two guys that were unheralded. One was a second-round pick. One was undrafted free agent. They're now in the rotation. They hit big with P.J. Washington last year. It's hard to hit a guy in the mid-lottery, and he did well. So they've done well so far. I mean, nothing has been, out of the ballpark. But, Ted, you're a baseball guy. You don't need home runs to win every game. Sometimes those singles and doubles drive in runs just as much as the long ball does. So they've done well with what they have, and I'm excited. It's an exciting time for once.
So let's get to the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and we're not talking about the memes of James Harden tonight on Twitter. So the question I had for you earlier, we hear James Harden is unhappy. Mm-hmm. There's a plethora of reasons why he's unhappy. Tell me what competitive teams would actually be interested in James Harden, a 31-year-old James Harden with a contract, I don't know, maybe 130, 140 million left for a very ball-dominant player.
I mean, the one thing about it, Ted, is you listed all what he is, but Ted, is one thing you did not list. He's one of the 5 best players in the entire NBA. He's a guy that, even though he is ball dominant, a couple years ago averaged he still averages 8.5, 9 assists a game on a nightly basis when he has the ball in his hands. So he does get his teammates involved. His MVP years, Ted, I mean, they were almost triple-double years, and for as ball dominant as he is, he's still a dynamic offensive player and still grabs rebounds. Of course, you have to look at the Philadelphia 76ers because the Daryl Morey combination. If they do trade Ben Simmons, you still have Harden and Embiid together. That's still, Ted, I mean, that's old school Kobe Shaq type of situation. Not
Right.
saying they're going to be like that, but it's that same dynamic, dominant big guy with an outstanding perimeter player. That's how it works. Of course, like teams like the Knicks will be interested because it's the New York Knicks and they want somebody.
They got to get somebody. Today's, I got to jump in here, Danny, and say today's big blow with Giannis. If you are Knicks management, Leon Rose and company, you're like, what do we do? Because we've got a ton of money, and still, even with Worldwide West, it seems like no one still wants to come there.
Well, Ted, you got to think Giannis isn't a Kentucky guy. So Worldwide West will become Worldwide West when Kentucky guys hit free agency. That's all I'm saying. Like Carl Anthony Towns. I think that's the first one. But I think when you look at like where can James Harden go? I think the best fit if he has moved anywhere, I'll be honest with you, Ted, is the Denver Nuggets. I love James Harden with the Denver Nuggets. You can put him and Jamal Murray together. And what the Rockets are asking for is they're asking for a young star. They want a franchise building block. They want a cornerstone piece. They want to be able to acquire what draft picks they offered. They asked reportedly for 3 first-rounders with Ben Simmons in a deal with the Sixers. So you're going to have to acquire first-round picks, and you're also going to have to acquire guys that can be able to put pieces around for the future. So if you look at the Denver Nuggets, for example, Michael Porter Jr. is arguably one of the most exciting and most interesting players in the NBA. He's 6'10", Ted. In college, high school, he was the most dominant player in high school. He was the best player in high school, the National Player of the Year, up in Seattle, in the Seattle area. He went to Missouri, was the guy that was supposed to turn Missouri's program around, hurt his back. Spent his first year on the shelf, but he slid in the draft because of the back injury. We saw how talented he was. We heard about the stories in practice that he was just the best player in practice, looking better than the guys on the Denver roster that include Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray.
And we lost Danny for a sec.
Yeah, okay. I know.
All right.
Yeah. Listen, it's a power of technology. No, I think when you look at the Nuggets, the way they're constructed, you can get Michael Porter Jr. And that's a franchise building block. Now you don't need a point guard because they just acquired John Wall. They just got Christian Wood in the offseason. You got DeMarcus Cousins. So if you're getting Gary Harris back, who's a very solid shooting guard, that replaces James Harden is his position. Also at the same time, listen, if you're looking for an intriguing prospect, Ted, you're old school. Manute Bol, his kid Bol, 7-footer played ball at Oregon for a couple months, is an extremely talented, intriguing prospect. Or you can go after Will Barton. There are plenty of things that you can do to pull this off. I think the Nuggets are a team that if they really could pull this off, I think would be a great fit for James Harden. Outside of that, it's hard to match James Harden because either A, you can't trade him to Washington for Bradley Beal because he just left Russell Westbrook.
Right.
Okay. You can't trade him to Phoenix, for example, for Devin Booker because it doesn't make sense. What, Dallas? You can't put Luka and James Harden together in the same court. It doesn't make logical sense. And every other team is not a championship team. You can't put them in Portland because Damian Lillard, that's not going to work. There all available places for James Harden, and Golden State makes absolutely no sense because even with Klay Thompson being out for the entire season, you still got to deal with Klay Thompson next summer. How is that going to work, especially with the salary cap gymnastics? And Ted, the last place I heard was the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks just gave away all their first rounders in the Drew Holiday trade. So that means what? You're going to end up trading Chris Middleton and potentially Drew Holiday for James Harden?
Because I was about to say, how soon could they turn Drew Holiday around and ship him out? Isn't that like until like December or something like that?
Well, normally it's December in a regular year. I would probably say I think Valentine's Day might be the quickest you can flip Drew Holiday. But here's the thing with Drew Holiday. Holiday brings the Milwaukee Bucks something they don't have. And nothing against Eric Bledsoe, but Drew Holiday's a 20-point-a-game scorer and can get 20 points easily. He's also a guy that can play both guard positions. And Ted, he is a player that doesn't have to be the number one. You remember he left New Orleans when Brandon Ingram was a 25-point-a-game, an All-Star last year, and they had Zion. So Drew Holiday doesn't have to be a number one option, and playing next to Giannis, you don't have to be one. But what Drew Holiday does bring is the fact that if he locks you down in the second half, he's a lockdown defender, and especially with a certain team that's starting to get healthy out in your neck of the woods, getting healthy, you need all the defensive players you can get for a potential playoff series with a guy with a team that's kind of loaded in the tri-state area, and I don't mean St. John's basketball or Seton Hall.
I'm going to tell you this much in regards to James Harden. The first thing I think of is keep James Harden away from Brooklyn at all cost. You don't want that because you would severely have to gut the team, and then you would have the problem of Harden, Durant, and Kyrie.
You put those three together if you're playing NBA 2K. Listen, if you put NBA 2K together, it's a great threesome on 2K because you can't stop them. But in real life, those three with a brand new head coach in Steve Nash, with Mike D'Antoni as an offensive coordinator per se, that sounds like an offensive dream, but a defensive nightmare. And the only way, if you're Brooklyn, that you would consider trading for James Harden is if you don't believe Kevin Durant's healthy. Now, as we saw over the weekend in his limited play on was a Sunday night, Kevin Durant looks healthy. He looks angry. He looks irritated, and he's ready to hoop. So,
and I got to call you out because you said, Ted, no more than 5 minutes.
You know what though, and you know what? I can be called out for my things, and the reason why I said that is because when you're coming back from the Achilles injury, you listen to some of the things that Kevin said about how he felt. He didn't feel like he was at himself, but hey, what we learned over the weekend is at 80% or 85%, Kevin Durant is still better than 95% of the NBA. And Brooklyn is a place right now where, Ted, you put this team together, and I'm talking without James Harden, you put this team the way the roster is constructed. If Kyrie goes down, Spencer Dinwiddie's right there. Okay, Karis LeVert can be the third scorer that you need. Is it going to stunt his growth? A potential James Harden type of situation later? I can see it happening. Joe Harris can shoot the basketball. You have a very good dynamic duo with Jordan and Jarrett Allen at center. All you got to do is figure this out. And Durant, as long as Kyrie lets Durant control the end of game situations, the Nets, I don't know if a team in the Eastern Conference can beat the Nets. And I love Miami, I love Milwaukee, but that's just way too much firepower. It's way too much.
Is it safe to say no team can beat the Nets in the Eastern Conference outside of the Nets?
It would, and injuries. I think there's only one team. There's only one thing that can beat the Nets, and that's either injuries or COVID. As long as Kevin Durant is healthy and Kyrie Irving's healthy, it's hard to beat them. Milwaukee's talented, but Milwaukee lost a lot of its depth. Boston's talented.
I want to stop you for a second because I want to give a couple of shout outs to Pablo, Brett Walker, Joseph Cohen said Drew can ball off. Drew can play off the ball. Mike, one of our favorites, Mike Patton, said Drew fits way better than Eric Bledsoe in Milwaukee. He also follows up with Brooklyn with Harden, Irving, and Durant is more entertaining than the Real Housewives of the Potomac. It's and the drama there is going to be thick. Regardless, I think with just Durant and Kyrie, before we go into and have you even touch Boston, Kyrie's comments. I know it might put you in a funny situation, but I'm going to say from Kyrie making his comments about pawns, not talking to the media, and then, of course, being fined $25,000, and that's like a slap on the wrist for a multi-millionaire athlete. But he makes the turnaround. What do you think his perspective is going to be this season? Is he going to be ready to play ball with the media, or is it going to be touch and go?
I honestly think that when in what you see with Kyrie Irving in the time is, it's been a situation where a lot of times in Kyrie Irving's case when he speaks, if he speaks, people criticize. If he doesn't speak, people criticize. He's at this point in his career where whatever he says, it's going to be one way or the other. It doesn't make sense. He's going to have his people saying the things. Now, mind you, some of the things Kyrie has said doesn't make sense either. Okay. I'm not saying that everything he says is right, but at the same time, he does put himself in these situations with some of his actions and some of the things he says. Now, what happens is if he comes out there and balls out in Brooklyn, then guess what? Everything he says to the media doesn't exist.
Everyone's going to fall back.
Yes. If Kyrie Irving looks like the Kyrie Irving that was in Cleveland, I'm talking about on the court, the year they won the championship, he's hitting shots. He is being the true Robin to Kevin Durant's Batman. Then guess what? And Brooklyn destroys the Eastern Conference, which potentially could happen. Then guess what, Ted? All this is all water in the bridge. But if Brooklyn gets off to a slow start and he's still not speaking to the media, and Kevin Durant is speaking to the media on a regular basis, the fines will start coming. It'll start piling up, and then we might have a Marshawn Lynch situation. Is he might answer every question with "I'm just happy to be here." Okay, listen,
right.
And one of the more interesting things with Steve Nash the other day speaking about Kyrie and the media situation. He says, I really haven't addressed Kyrie about the media situation because Kyrie's been such a great person in camp. He's been a leader in camp. He's been doing what we ask him to do. He's been following the system, and he's, doing what he needs to in the court. So anything off the court, I don't need to worry about it. And to be honest with you, listen, he's not hurting anybody. Yes, and I'm a member of the media. If he doesn't talk, it is what it is. What can I do? I can only write stories on what I write. If Kyrie says something, it's a story. If he scores 35 points, it's also a story. So, it's a catch-22. So, I mean, I get why people, especially people, they're millionaires, they're supposed to talk. No, they're not. Do you go to your job and talk every day? No, you don't have to. Do you have to go? You have to answer questions in your job every day? It is what it is. He gets paid to put the ball in the basket, sell jerseys, sell tickets, and win championships. That's what he gets paid max dollars for. Anything else, to quote the saying, is uncivilized. That's all it is. And so, like I said, I don't agree with half the stuff he says in a lot of cases, but people twist words. He can say it's green outside, but then it gets twisted as saying that he loves green. He doesn't like Green Ninja Turtles. And he didn't say, but the world, he just likes everything green. So I get where he's coming from. I hope the stance will soften. And I'm sure with enough fines, he will shorten his stance. And then, listen, we can start getting short comments from Kyrie all season. But I don't think this media not speaking will last long. They will make him talk eventually. That paycheck, though, it's $25,000 now, Ted. But just think about this: you keep violating the NBA, they're going to hit you more and more. I mean, now the obligation to speak to the media, right. It's an interesting thing with that. So players, in Kyrie's case, why he had to speak so much over the last couple of years? Because he's been hurt. You don't got to address the media but one time a week when you're hurt, and that's at the team's discretion. So he's been hurt for the last couple of years, so he ain't had to talk. He doesn't have to.
I think he's in the best possible situation with being the best number 2 in the league.
And you have a guy in Kevin Durant, when he says something, is Kevin Durant's a lightning rod. So you have two guys who are lightning rods who are misunderstood by the media, and it makes it perfect. So, like I said, I don't think Kyrie will – I don't think this whole not speaking thing will last long because the NBA will hit his paycheck, especially now where there's no fans in the stands. There is no revenue to be drawn in, and everything players do and say, the teams are basically banking on it. So I think I will say Kyrie should start speaking to the media probably after the first of the year. I don't
still, but fans will still purchase jerseys,
of course, because Ted,
all that type of stuff. Come on,
he's got the best handle in the NBA. So what do you expect? People love Kyrie on the court. I also compare it to kind of like LeBron James in some ways. I said compare in some ways. Don't make me say I'm both of them. People love on court LeBron, but don't like off court LeBron. It's the same thing with Kyrie Irving. People love Kyrie when he's on the court, but when he's off the court, it is what it is. Charles Barkley was the same way.
So I want you to sell to me. I'm a Boston Celtic fan for the next 5 minutes. Sell James Harden on the Celtics?
It's real simple. Jason Tatum and James Harden would be a great dynamic duo. But my only concern is I would rather have Jaylen Brown, who's a little bit less and a little bit more defensively than anything about James Harden. Listen, James Harden will be the scorer that you need to go in a battle in a score type situation. If you need a guy to go get buckets and make plays, that's great. I don't like the fit personally. I like the team the way it's set up and the way it's set up now. I just hope Kemba Walker stays healthy, but I'm not big on James Harden in Boston. I'm really not. I don't like the fit, but I know Danny Ainge has been going whale hunting for the longest, and he has, like I said, the Infinity Stone. I figured out that the Infinity Stone. He has the Infinity Stone in his pocket, which is a 27, the largest trade exception in the history of the NBA, Ted, which means 27.5 million, that he can go acquire any contract with that up to 27.5 million, and it doesn't count against the salary cap. So basically, it's a $27.5 million get out of jail free card
for this year.
They have 12 months to use it from the day of the trade.
Okay, but what does it cover? Does it cover just 1 year, then you have to make the money work? From that point on. You have to be able to absorb it during that time frame. The contract can last. If they want to go trade for Kevin Love, they can go trade for Kevin Love. If they want to go trade for Andre Drummond, they can go trade for it. Now, mind you, it's up to the team where they're going to sit there and get destroyed later on with the luxury tax. If you're Boston, they went out and got Tristan Thompson. What happens if he's not healthy? You can go get Andre Drummond, who probably should be traded from Cleveland sometime before the end of the week. I think so, before the next couple of weeks. You can go get Ted. If somebody gets hurt, you can go acquire somebody. The Golden State Warriors used their trade exception to go get Kelly Oubre when Klay Thompson went down. So they went and used that. Teams sometimes use that exception, but Ted, there's a reason why Boston waited until the last minute to pull this trade off, just so that they can get that exception. So what? They gave away a bunch of second-round picks that they'll never have anyway. Boston's always good for getting rid of using draft picks they don't have anyway. So to get that exception is the Infinity Stone. Danny Ainge has got something up his sleeve, and don't think that Danny Ainge won't use this thing we get to the trade deadline, because if he feels like he can beat the Brooklyn Nets, he can go beat the Milwaukee Bucks. Ted, there's a whole bunch of guys sitting out there that would love to be traded, or there's a potential free agent that team needs to get rid of, and it could create an exception for them. It could be done. I don't think Danny Ainge will sit on this trade exception. He will use it. How much will he use? And Ted, remember, it's only one player. It cannot be used over multiple players. So Danny Ainge will have to go his big whale hunting. Right.
So there's a bunch of guys you can go after and make it work.
Okay. All right. Danny, before we get you on out of here, I have a question about the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
African Americans and the vaccine. It's kind of like oil and water.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of talk about, X amount of brown, black people not being interested in taking this vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to share a story with our brown and black brothers and sisters out there on the reasons why you need to take the vaccine, what story would you share? Or go the opposite way and, I don't want to put you in a box. I just want to know from you, or would you, are you for, are you pro, or are you against?
I think for me, because knowing how clinical trials has been in my lifetime existence, I have a bit of hesitation towards it. But at the same time, I understand that modern medicine has changed over the years. When they did clinical trials, Ted, when we were children, you back in the 1300s, and, me back in the 80s, the way they did clinical trials for different vaccines is different, So,
right.
I understand how modern medicine changes, how we do things. For me, I'm a little skeptical of it. Of course, I'm skeptical with anything brand new. I look at the vaccine like I look at a new game console. Okay. it might be great. You never know, but there could be kinks in the road. There could be kinks that we have. So it's for me. I want to see at least one or so runs before I think about taking it. But I can tell you this: I know members of my family that the second it's available, they're going to get it. They're in the waiting list line to go get it. So I want to watch and see how it plays out. Um, I'm not running to the first batch the same way I don't run for Xboxes. Well, actually, I do run for Xboxes. Let me stop. We both were trying to figure those Xbox lines out in November, but but with the Xbox, they ignore the PlayStation. There's always going to be missteps. There's always going to be hiccups in the first batch or so. They always say buy a new game console after the first of the year, the following year. Let them get the first 6 months kinks out of it. It's part of it. For me, I'm a little bit, I'm interested to find out how it works, and I want to see the numbers. But like I said, if people run out to go get it, I understand. And I'm not going to, I'll look at people differently the other way because everybody's situation is different. I think for me, it's just that I just want to see how the first batch goes, and then after the first batch, just to see, because for me, I have health concerns. I have a history of pulmonary embolisms, due to my hip replacement surgery. So I've got to be careful about things like this because I don't want any type of flare-ups when it comes to me catching another PE, me catching anything involving, anything involving my body. Because ever since I had the embolism, I'm a case to potentially get one. So I have to be real careful. So I'm a little bit more skeptical. I saw what happened with the peanut vaccines and, how it, the reaction to those two people, I think it was in England. So I look at those and I look at myself and I say, you know what? I really want to see what type of side effects this comes with. I want to see it tested. I want to see it in different people. People not just, brown people who are just like myself, who have the same situations that I do. So, I want a vaccine as much as anybody else because I want us to get back to some kind of normalcy. I'm in a state now, Ted, where we're in a curfew. At 10 o'clock, at 10 o'clock at night, Ted, we got to be home between 10 and 5. Otherwise you're getting pulled over. And I want to be able to go back, Ted. Covering games. I want to go back into a press box and feel comfortable. I want to go to a basketball game and I'm covering a game and you have people in the stands. But I also want people in the stands with the ability to be themselves again. I don't.
Danny, you froze up, but I will tell you, I'm with you. Big shout out to Bianca Brown. Thank you for joining us. Mostly, yes, we do want the world to go back to the way it used to be 12 months ago. But ultimately, I think the more that we see the healthcare workers and I guess influential people, meaning, ex-presidents, people that will inspire something. I could care less about a celebrity taking a vaccine or anything like that, but people that we consider world leaders, people that it's so funny because I'll wrap it up by saying nurse who lives across the street from me, she's a nurse at Lenox Hill Hospital. She's getting to take it next week. So she's like the first person I know that's actually taking the vaccine. And, I think along with this is hope that third quarter, fall, hopefully late fall going to early winter, that we can start to live our lives again. I think we lost Danny, but I want to thank everyone once again for joining Late Night Parents. You can find Late Night Parents on the web. You go to latenightparents.com, all different types of blog posts and articles, and you'll find our YouTube page and Twitter page. So give it a follow, give it a like. Want to thank Danny Thompson for joining us tonight. I know we had some technical issues. Big shout out to Haps, to Peter, and to Pablo and the rest of the team there. And that's about it. But I will tell you, yes, Bianca, it is good to know that I'll actually know someone. You know, that's the one thing. I will close with this. My dad, who's in his late 80s, like that's one of the things that's heavy on my mind. Like, okay, when is he going to get to take it? Because the elderly, I think, are next in line outside of, you know, everyone who's like an essential worker, healthcare style workers. Next would be the elderly people. So this whole pandemic has weighed on us very differently. Keep the faith, you know, keep God first in everything that you do. And we'll be back in, I think, next week. Thanks again, folks.